Balaji says that the DeFi metrics will be to this decade what the social graph was to the last one. So the social media got really important over the last decade. They were like being considered as a joke or just like some kind of pastime for kids, posting breakfast photos on Twitter. And then after Trump got elected, everybody got like a bit more serious about it. And even before, when the media, the legacy media, got disrupted by these new big tech companies, and they were like just small startups before, but they grew into like these big tech companies. So then people started to pay attention to them. So this was the social graph, like the social graph of your connections. So, and then these Web2 companies like Facebook or Twitter, they monetized your social graph, and they own your social graph, meaning like you can't like export your social graph. I mean, you can, and we discussed this before, you can export, let's say, your posts, your tweets from like Facebook or Twitter, but you can't contact your social graph directly. Let's say you would like download your social graph and move it from Facebook to or from Twitter to some like new decentralized
Hello, welcome back to Mtambo's Guest Podcast. My name is Jakub Mtambo, and the following is a conversation with Jakub Simek, a co-founder of Wezesha DAO and an author of Wisdom Enterprising. In today's episode, I'll be talking with Jakub Simek about his article Flatcoin and the daily Balajisms series. And now, dear friends, here is Jakub Simek. Hi, Jakub. Thank you for joining me again at Mtambo's Guest Podcast today.
Hi, Duke. I'm happy to see you again.
Happy to see you too. Well, Jakub, Balaji introduced the concept of a flat coin, which remains flat against a basket of goods. How does this work, and what advantages does it offer over traditional stable coins?
It's like a different use case or different, our newer type of a stable coin, because like the stablecoin like USDC, which is like the USD coin. It's like the second biggest stablecoin that actually Balaji helped to introduce or to launch at Coinbase. So he was working on it with some team of people. And so this is like the classical example of a stable coin, which is pegged to a fiat currency, in this case, a US dollar, and you have a couple of these like competing stable coins. But then the question is like, what in the current inflationary environment, when you have like 10% inflation or more, even in like Western countries, if the fiat currency is inflating itself away, like then you probably want something that is more stable vis-a-vis the basket of goods that you care about. And this kind of opens the space for new types of stable coins, flat coins that are like something new, that like are creating or putting like the orders like on both sides of the order book, so of the depth chart, and they're placing orders of like, let's say, the commodities, or I mean the products, the goods that they are tracking, and they try to kind of keep the prices stable. The value of the currency against those like selected goods stable by buying or selling also these goods. So like placing orders on both sides of the order book of the V-shaped depth chart. And of course, if there is like a real scarcity of some goods, this kind of peg might not hold, and it just like then it's like kind of being broken, and these goods will inflate against that currency for sure. But generally, this kind of new kind of thing, it's also part of like an idea of the ledger of record, and also like this kind of like inflation dashboard. Like you could have like this flat coin that actually tracks the inflation and like tries to keep the price is stable, and then you can like see the difference between, let's say, the flat coin and the fiat, and to measure the inflation. So and Balaji explains like how this could work in reality. So they basically how this the managers of these flat coins, how would they get the money actually to place these orders to buy these commodities, and they would get it from the demurrage. So like you would pay basically for holding that coin. So instead of that coin being like inflated away, you would like pay fees for holding that coin. And because that coin is like the flat coin, or and also the fiat is like making the opposite trade-off from the cryptocurrency. So the crypto is like very volatile in the short term, but like the Bitcoin is appreciating in the long term. So and the US dollar has the opposite trade-off. So it's like stable in the short term, but it's depreciating in the long term. And by demurrage, so which is like paying to keep the paying to hold some kind of asset, you would make this trade-off explicit. So you would like you would unbundle these two kind of properties. So you would you would like pay to use for the stability, so
like so like the demurrage is like a fee to hold like assets like gold in a vault, and can make a flat coin manager compete against each other, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because then you could like measure how what are the demurrage fees, like how cheap or expensive it is to hold these or that currency, and also how they are managing the flatness of the coin, how stable the coin really is against like some selected baskets of goods that you care in some kind of a location. So it might be like it could be like some city coin, or it could be like just like for some kind of territory, or some county, or some country. It's just like you want to keep prices stable in that in some kind of region.
That's interesting. The aspect of of a demurrage fee to make the trade-off between crypto and fiat explicitly. But Balaji suggests that you don't need to put 100% trust in one flat coin, but rather have a portfolio of well-managed flat coins. Can you explain how this would work in practice?
Yeah, I mean, not just flat coins, but you could have like as you said, like it's then because you still need to trust the manager of the flat coin. So, and how to solve this, it's Balaji says, then it becomes portfolio theory. So you don't put 100% trust in one flat coin, but you can have a portfolio of it, and of them. And so but you also like probably don't want to hold your 100% of your assets in fiat or in flat coins, but you understand this kind of trade-offs. Let's say that the crypto is volatile, but you still need to buy bread. You need to eat, and so you would hold a certain portfolio, or let's say have some kind of budget, or rain day fund, or let's say for 3 months of your regular expenses, or 6 months, or whatever you choose, how conservative you are, let's say, and you would hold it like in fiat or in cash, and including something like flat coin, because then you know that okay, this in short term this flat coin will be stable against the baskets of goods that you buy regularly, and you can use this this instrument, I mean this asset, for buying your groceries or paying your bills in some kind of location where you are based. But then, so you don't need to, let's say, pay it with crypto when the crypto, it's also crypto, but like pay it with Bitcoin Lightning or something when the Bitcoin is down, and you don't want to touch Bitcoin, but you can use this flat coin. And it's also like a V3 of it's like if the fiat is kind of depreciating too much or being inflated too much. So, and this flat coin could be like a V3 of money, like a third version, like, or a next version, like of this. It's not gonna be fiat because it will have different properties, but it's also not Bitcoin. It's something like a CBDC could be. Like you could think about it like a CBDC, but that it's pegged not to, let's say, USD or or euro or something, but it's pegged to baskets of goods.
Jakub, that's a powerful perspective. Balaji also mentions the DeFi matrix to what Google News did to newspaper by destroying the regional monopolies and forcing them to compete on features. How do you see this playing out in the financial world, and what role will the state and big companies play?
Yeah, so Balaji says that the DeFi metrics will be to this decade what the social graph was to the last one. So the social media got really important over the last decade. They were like being considered as a joke or just like some kind of pastime for kids, posting breakfast photos on Twitter. And then after Trump got elected, everybody got like a bit more serious about it. And even before, when the media, the legacy media, got disrupted by these new big tech companies, and they were like just small startups before, but they grew into like these big tech companies. So then people started to pay attention to them. So this was the social graph, like the social graph of your connections. So, and then these Web2 companies like Facebook or Twitter, they monetized your social graph, and they own your social graph, meaning like you can't like export your social graph. I mean, you can, and we discussed this before, you can export, let's say, your posts, your tweets from like Facebook or Twitter, but you can't contact your social graph directly. Let's say you would like download your social graph and move it from Facebook to or from Twitter to some like new decentralized service, and and this is not possible like in the Web2 environment, like in this like hub and spoke environment. Like you would need like some Web3 services, like where you can actually you have something like ENS or Solana name service or Ethereum name service, and you can actually like communicate through these like domains and send like peer-to-peer, like encrypted end-to-end encrypted provably encrypted messages. And so you could like then you have this social graph, and you can like import it, you can do some computation on it, and you could like it's not owned by these Web2 companies, and it means that you also have like digital property rights. So and like back to the DeFi metrics. So so this was the social graph, right? Like, but then the DeFi metrics is like some kind of abstraction or idea of like a very liquid kind of place or marketplace, where like a matrix where all assets are tradable against all assets. So it's like a giant crypto wallet where you can hold your NFTs, your even like crypto-REITs. So it's like a crypto real estate investment trust, like, or some crypto credentials, crypto passports, CBDCs, maybe even fiat, like fiat, and then Balaji says like the Bitcoin is like 0.00 of these like this giant matrix of assets. So it's like the Bitcoin is like the the asset that every other asset is being compared to. It's like the constant, and all the other assets are variables. And but it's kind of, I mean, when people have experiences like with crypto wallets, like, so they can relate to this, but imagine it's just like, it's like 100 times bigger or something, and more more user-friendly or something. But like, and you don't need to go through, let's say, fiat currencies to do. You can like trade, I don't know, you could trade your NFT for a crypto-REIT or something like that, or you can have even like some personal tokens, which sounds a bit crazy, but it's already happening. But it's a bit crazy, like all assets will get like blockchainified, or like and as you said, this will then destroy the regional monopolies of, let's say, fiat currencies, and they will have to start competing on features like CBDCs, like, let's say, privacy protecting features, or what are the transaction fees, or how fast it is to send. I don't know, you can have many like use cases that we will probably not even think about like today. So just to explain like this metaphor with Google News, so like you had regional monopolies of some like newspapers, or oligopolies, but even monopolies, because they were like, let's say you have like one, like some small city, and the city only has one, or even a big city, but it has like one major newspaper. And these newspapers were like reprinting these AP, like Associated Press stories, or Reuters stories, like these like wire services, and they were like okay with it. And then they had their like local reporters, local stories, but they had a regional monopoly, because like people bought that newspaper because they were living in that city. But with Google News, like all these like newspapers, they were like suddenly very easily comparable, because you could you just had the feed of news, and if they were like having just reprinting the Reuters stories, they would have like all just the same story with all the newspapers. So they had to compete on features, which actually led to more clickbait. So it was like a race to the bottom. But anyhow, like but technically they could compete also on, I don't know, investigative reporting and other issues. But then they were disrupted by big tech, and their budgets were slashed, and their stock prices collapsed. So it kind of led to more clickbait. And also the subscription model is like, it means that you have to choose a side, you can't be like politically neutral, and so you just have to write what your subscribers like. So then it's like, then it kind of ends up in a place where I think 90-something% of NYT subscribers are Democrats. So you get these, and you had like single digits of Republicans trusting the legacy media, which is in the US, which is like quite very, very kind of sad. But it's, but that's the case. So but this is the media. landscape being transferred by technology, and actually even just like Web 2 technology, and now you have like the Web 3 and the and it will change like it will change countries, not just media. Also, it will reform media or transform media, but like the countries need to then compete. Also to attract the top tech talents, so they need to be crypto friendly. We discussed it before recently, and also they need to launch their like CBDCs, and then they don't need to launch their CBDCs, but they can like use some like already existing stable coins that are like independent or some but they have to as I also write in the article, they have to have their moral stack, like a strong moral stack, meaning like the strong moral justification for their like what are their values. Let's say they're pro freedom, pro crypto, pro business, pro technology, but they also need to have their tech stack, so be serious about digitalization, about like something like in India they have this India stack, where I think you can pay with your just like with the fingerprint or with it's like they have their digital identity and I don't know payments tag, and it's kind of it was implemented quite fast for like I don't know billion people or something. I don't know how many users they have, but Balaji talks about it also quite often about this case. And so DeFi metrics. I mean, that's also it's kind of like sounds like a sci-fi prediction, but like then maybe just like if people read about the digital yuan, and I used this example a couple of times already, but the digital yuan crossed like 100 billion in transactions, 100 billion yuan in transactions, and also successfully passed some cross-border payment tests. So it's like it's quite recent. It's since COVID, when I mean they launched it officially during the Olympics thing.
And actually, they're the first one to launch the CBDC, to test CBDC.
Yeah. They're fast. I mean, but it's. I mean, this kind of shows that crypto is they're serious. Also, crypto is as serious as a business. It's not just like I don't know, cats on the internet or NFTs just like some funny pictures.
Yeah.
But it's serious because like many central banks are contemplating it, but the Davos men are contemplating it, but they I mean but they love discussing things, they just love discussing it over expensive at some expensive venues, over expensive meals with some champagne, but then the Chinese are already shipping it, so they are not just shipping it, but they're using CBDCs already, 100 billion, it's a lot of money. I don't know, it's
it's true.
And so let's see, but give it a year or two and they might actually grow their share from like 2.5% of the global payments share to I don't know over 10 maybe. And people then will be like, okay man, this is serious, because it's like something like WeChat, like Elon Musk, you can see like these YouTube shorts like of him actually talking about like WeChat. Basically that with Twitter they should just like copy the functionalities of WeChat, so even like with WeChat you see this example of Twitter being inspired by some features of WeChat. So and I mean we saw this and we discussed this is like many times, but let's say with M-Pesa and Kenya, like in 2007, like Kenyans are paying paying with mobile phones since 2007. So that's like one example of innovation coming from Kenya or from Africa. And you have like like there are these kind of stereotypes that, let's say, the Chinese are just copying the Westerners or something like that. The Westerners are the developed ones, and everybody is developing, and so they have to catch up. But like, you have the proof point. I mean, you don't need to trust us, or we're just like talking, just having fun here. But like, you can listen from like Elon Musk speaking about how the Twitter should copy WeChat, some functionalities of WeChat. Because basically people in China are living on WeChat, so it's like the whole ecosystem. Like, I don't know, you are communicating with your doctor on WeChat. You are, I don't know, just ordering a cab on WeChat. So, or paying the cab, with WeChat. So, yeah. So I mean, this is like the seeing the future, and so yeah. I mean, let's see. Like with the DeFi, the DeFi metrics, it sounds also a bit crazy now. But like, but people who already used like some crypto wallets and who don't have just crypto there, but let's say also some stable coin, or if they have their like some NFTs, then they understand like, okay, then. Okay, you can hold many things like in one wallet,
Yeah, I think the DeFi metrics is a very interesting concept, and yeah, let's wait and see. But moving forward, Balaji also suggests that the 20th century was a centralizing century for the West, but computers and the internet are favoring decentralization. How do you see this turning affecting the financial industry, and what opportunities and challenges do you see?
Yeah. I mean, so we this kind of gives a predictive power, some kind of predictive power about the future. When you have this kind of model of like the future is our past, and our future is our past, and our past is our future.
Yeah.
Because so Balaji uses this point of like, let's say 1950s, like as the peak centralization, because you had only like I don't know, a few TV stations and a few radio stations, and there was like everybody was watching the same program, like some like evening news and some kind of like, you had like the one top commentator, and everybody was like aligning or uniting or being like it's like the manufacturing of consent kind of idea, where or the hub and spoke kind of topology, and people like I mean, it had some good aspects of it. It had some like negative aspects of it. Like there was like this monoculture, and let's say, but maybe the trust in society was higher. But nevertheless, I think we cannot go back to that era, because the technology progressed, and as you said, the printing press actually, and the newspapers, the radio, the TV, all favored centralization, because of that's just like the topology, the hierarchical kind of structure, and it's also like because there is the barriers to entry, so you had the freedom of speech, but you didn't have the freedom of reach, and it was like it's like there was this saying like beware of a man who buys ink in barrels or something. So it's like like in theory you had the freedom of speech, but you wouldn't get the TV license, and the equipment to start the TV, and it was like all super expensive. So like like a regular person, let's say I don't know, like a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old or 20-year-old, it's like forget about it. You just like you wouldn't you wouldn't start your TV station. But now you can be a YouTuber, just like a kid.
Yeah, it's
can't vote, but it can be like influencer, political influencer, but the kid can vote or something like that. Yeah, so Yeah, and we discussed before that there was this like code influencer, like 6-year-old who has certificates from Microsoft, including as your AI certificate. I don't know, it's like a 6-year-old, so it's like normal kids. Hey, the guy is from India, right? Like, but the normal kids like are just learning to write and read, and he's like coding influencer on Replit. It's just it's cool. It's like the internet increases variance. That's like the that this is a nice example. So let's say you can have like a 20-year-old billionaire who's sold their startup, but then you have like 40-year-old just guy playing video games in the basement of his parents house or something like that, you know. So that's like the example of how the internet can increase variance. But Balaji uses another examples like Uber rides are both like much longer and much shorter than the taxi rides used to be. Like some people used it like to travel from one city to another city, like 100 kilometers. And there are many examples like that. So and but then okay, so we can't go back to the mid 1950s. So the question is like, where are we heading, you know? And it's like at least in the West we are heading for more decentralization. And how does it look like? It's more like when the frontier was still open, like in the US like 100 years ago, and you had these like robber barons, they called them, but it was or railroad barons. That's another term for like this kind of entrepreneurs. Someone like Elon Musk versus Jeff Bezos today, like they're competing in space industry, which is like a kind of similar dynamic. And you have many, Balaji mentions, I don't know, like dozens of examples like these, like where you're going like in the future, but you are kind of discovering that actually you are like going to the past. But of course it looks different. It's not like people are not competing. You don't have the railroad barons, but you have, I don't know, space barons or something like that. Yeah, so there's one example. But let's say you have another one, like the Soviets lost in the Afghanistan in the 80s, if I remember correctly. But then the Americans lost in the Afghanistan like in 2021. So it was like, okay, the Soviets lost in the Afghanistan, and then the US actually became a hyperpower in the 90s. Like the sole superpower, and then let's say now they lost in Afghanistan. The U.S. lost in Afghanistan in 2021, and the China is becoming like it's on the rise as a superpower. You know, like let's say in the last century, like a couple of decades ago, the Chinese were actually the junior partner to the Soviets, to the Russians. And now, after the Ukraine war, where the Russian invasion of Ukraine, now the roles seem reversed. You know, not just seem, but they are. You know, the Chinese are the senior partner, and the Russians are the junior. So yeah, they. And you know, they it's kind of like they wanted to make the Russians wanted to make Ukraine their colony. You know, they might end up like a colony of China themselves. You know, so I mean, it's just like a prediction, but like okay, but no, but this is like the just like one of the many examples. Like Balaji also uses like the FDR from the US, the president. Like back then, he defeated the so-called business plot against him, and now let's say like in 2021 was it Twitter banned Trump, you know. So it's like the company the company was stronger than the US president. But then you also have like another kind of interesting mix, like with Elon taking over Twitter, which is also interesting. And you could, there are probably like many of these examples, like where we are traveling back and like connecting it to the financial system. Okay, you had You had private banking back then, so you had like banks, not just private banking, but private currencies. Like the banks issued their own currencies back in those like 100 years ago or more, and now you have like all these like various cryptocurrencies, and even like just yeah, you have all these like explosion of thousands of cryptocurrencies. So that's another example. And like you have DeFi today, like so it's of course it's like a V3. It's not going back to the railroads and I don't know, telegraph, but it's but it's decentralizing, definitely.
As we come to the end of this episode, I think decentralization is a powerful trend that will transform many industries, including finance. The DeFi matrix and flatcoins are an excellent example of this trend in action. They allow individuals to bypass traditional financial intermediaries and take controls of their asset. However, this also raises important questions about trust, regulation, and security. It's crucial that we find ways to balance decentralization with stability and safety to ensure that the benefits of this trend are accessible to everyone. Well, Jakub, thank you so much for joining me again at Mtambo's Desk podcast and for sharing ideas about the future of finance, which are certainly thought-provoking and inspiring.
Thank you, Duke. It was great talking to you.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed listening to Mtambo's Desk podcast, don't forget to subscribe, give this episode a thumbs up, and be sure to come back next week for another episode. Until then, this is Duke Mtambo, and don't forget to do good always.